Have you ever had one of those moments where you made a tiny mistake in public and immediately felt like the whole world was watching? Maybe you tripped walking up the stairs, spilled coffee on your shirt, or stumbled over your words in a meeting. In that instant, it feels like a giant spotlight has turned on, illuminating your every flaw. That feeling has a name: the spotlight effect. The spotlight effect is the tendency for people to overestimate how much others notice their actions, appearance, or mistakes. In reality, most people are far too absorbed in themselves to pay as much attention as we think they do. Yet our minds convince us that every slip-up is on display for the entire world. Psychologists Thomas Gilovich and Kenneth Savitsky coined the term in the late 1990s, building on decades of research about self-awareness and social perception. To test the idea, they designed one of the most famous experiments in social psychology. They asked college students to wear a cringeworthy Barry Manilow t-shirt and then walk into a room full of peers. The students were mortified. They predicted that about half of the people in the room would notice and remember the shirt. But when the researchers asked the observers afterwards, only about 20% even recalled seeing it. The gap between prediction and reality was striking. What felt like being under a burning spotlight was, in truth, barely a flicker in anyone else's awareness. This mismatch between perception and reality is at the heart of the spotlight effect, and it shapes how we live our daily lives. Think back to your own experiences. Do you remember the small mistakes other people around you made yesterday? Did you notice the stain on a stranger's shirt, the typo in a coworker's email, or the moment someone fumbled with their words? Probably not. But when it happens to you, it's unforgettable. That's because we are the central characters in our own stories. We live inside our heads 24/7. Every action we take, every emotion we feel, every mistake we make, it all feels magnified. But we mistakenly assume that others view us with the same magnification. They don't. The spotlight effect doesn't just make us self-conscious, it influences our behavior. People often avoid raising their hands in class, speaking up in meetings, or joining in on activities like dancing or karaoke because they're afraid of being judged. But here's the truth: the audience is usually too distracted by their own spotlights to notice much about yours. In some ways, the spotlight effect is a form of egocentrism. Not arrogance, but the natural tendency to see ourselves as the main characters in the story of life. After all, from your perspective, you are the center of the world. You know every detail of your own experience. It's only logical to assume others are equally tuned in. But the human brain is limited. Most of us are simply too focused on ourselves, our own worries, our own insecurities, to truly notice others at the level they fear. This bias doesn't only apply to negative moments, it also applies to positives. Maybe you wore a new outfit, delivered what you thought was an amazing presentation, or posted something you felt proud of online. Chances are you thought people were paying close attention. But again, the spotlight exaggerates. Most people only register fleeting impressions, if they notice at all. So, what creates this illusion? Psychologists argue it's partly due to anchoring and adjustment. We anchor on our own experience. We feel our embarrassment or pride intensely, and then fail to adjust enough for the fact that others don't share the same perspective. It's also tied to self-awareness. The more aware we are of our own flaws, the more convinced we become that others must be watching. Consider public speaking. Surveys consistently rank it among people's greatest fears, even above death. But why? Because the spotlight effect convinces us that every pause, every slip of the tongue will be magnified in the eyes of the audience. The reality? Most audiences are forgiving, or not paying much attention in the first place. They're often daydreaming, checking their phones, or silently worrying about their own turn to speak. The spotlight effect can also create unnecessary shame. You spill water at a restaurant, and for hours afterwards you replay the moment in your head. Yet, for the other diners, it's already forgotten. This gap in perception can keep us stuck in cycles of self-criticism that are disproportionate to the actual event. But here's the hopeful part. Once you understand the spotlight effect, you can start to free yourself from it. Realizing that others don't scrutinize us nearly as much as we think is liberating. It means you can take more risks, be bolder, and forgive yourself faster. It means you can speak up in that meeting, try that new hobby, or dance at that wedding without worrying so much about what others think. Psychologists recommend a few strategies for overcoming the spotlight effect. First, remind yourself of the Barry Manilow t-shirt. That experiment is living proof that we vastly overestimate other people's attention. Second, shift focus outward. Instead of obsessing over how you're being perceived, genuinely listen to and engage with others. And third, practice self-compassion. When you do make a mistake, ask yourself, would I notice if someone else did this? Would I still be thinking about it tomorrow? Chances are the answer is no. The spotlight effect also shows up online. Ever deleted a social media post because it didn't get enough likes? Or agonized over what people would think about your profile picture? That, too, is the spotlight at work. The truth is, most people scroll past without a second thought. Yet we inflate the attention we believe we're getting and let it shape our choices. The broader lesson here is perspective. Everyone is the main character in their own story, but in your story, you're only a background extra. And that's not an insult, it's a relief. It means you can experiment, fail, and try again without the crushing weight of imagined judgment. So next time you feel paralyzed by embarrassment or fear of attention, remember, nobody is watching as closely as you think. Most people are too busy worrying about their own mistakes to even register yours. That's not just psychology, it's freedom. The spotlight effect teaches us that life isn't a stage with one actor in the center. It's a crowded theater where everyone believes they're the star of the show. And that's good news, because it means the audience isn't scrutinizing you. It's worrying about itself. So ask yourself, what would you do if you knew the spotlight wasn't real? Would you speak up? Take more risks? Live more boldly? Share your answers in the comments. I'd love to hear them. And if you enjoyed this journey into the hidden quirks of the mind, subscribe to the Curiosity Vault. Every day we uncover another invisible force shaping your behavior. Until next time, stay curious